So my first question to you is, what made you think about the carnivore way of eating?
Well, that's a good question. And I think a lot of people go into different diets because of weight issues. Mine is always been about health.
Mm-hmm.
I was born sick. I was plied with antibiotics and steroids for the first, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years of life, and went on to still have to, because of ear infections, asthma. I was born with bleeding, ulcerative colitis.
Wow.
And back in the day, I was born in 1960, and back in the day, that's all they knew was to give you more steroids, more antibiotics, and formula.
Yeah.
So it turned out I was allergic to, all the formulas, and they never thought about that. They just kept giving me the formula. And anyway, so I've been interested in health. I'm also at heart an athlete, so the two are pretty conflicting. So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been pretty interested in health, but there's so much conflicting information out there. It's hard to decide what to do. And I did get a little bit heavy
Mm-hmm.
uh, by my 30s. And when I was 41, I decided to go keto
Mm-hmm.
and learned about it was Dr. Atkins, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went keto and lost 30 pounds in 2 months on
Wow.
strict keto. And I stayed strict. And for me, keto meant 20 grams or less
Yes.
of carbohydrates. So I did that for 20, almost 20 years and kept my weight up. Although I look back on some journals,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some pretty hard entries where I was tracking food and I was eating strictly 20 grams of carbs, 1,200 calories, and still struggling to keep the weight down. So I was maybe fluctuating with about 10 pounds or something.
Okay.
And but overall, keto kept my asthma at bay. It was good, but not perfect. I still had to use a rescue inhaler and every once in a while another steroid inhaler. Still got a couple of bronchial infections, and as long as I stayed carbs, I did traveling once. We lived in a Volkswagen bus for a year and a half, and traveling down through from here to the tip of South America. There were times when it was eat carbs or die. And I came home with asthma, very bad asthma,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to get on thyroid medication, which was interesting. And I never gave it a second thought. But I decided at some point after we got home that I was, pushing the weight boundaries. So I went back to my strict keto, and then I was over medicated
Mm.
on the thyroid, and had to get off of it because my thyroid numbers were like my TSH was zero, or
Wow.
uh, yeah, I mean and I was hyper. It was manic and hyper. It was terrible. So I got off the thyroid medication, and the asthma got better, but not perfect. Still using a rescue inhaler. So somewhere along the line, and I've had in 2008, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease,
Wow.
which was horrible.
Mm.
And we don't have time to go in to Lyme disease, but I struggled on my own I knew I did not want to do antibiotics because that just makes things worse with Lyme.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I struggled on my own for 5 years and finally found a clinic in Reno, which is only an hour away from here, that's internationally known for homeopathic treatments. And the treatments worked, but they're god awful expensive and god awful horrible as far as the reactions go, but they worked.
When
So
you say worked, what did they do? What was the
they
difference?
took the symptoms down. It got my immune system to wake up and pay attention to the bugs
Right.
and to fight off the bugs. But every year at springtime, I'd go out because I live outdoors most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go get a million mosquito bites, and I'm allergic to them. And my immune system would get confused,
Mm-hmm.
and forget to fight the Lyme disease. So I'm back in the clinic, 2 weeks of every day driving in, getting an IV treatment, having horrible reactions, and spending a lot of money. So that was every year. And I eventually, being in the keto world, and of course I listen to a million podcasts and follow a lot of people and educate myself every day in health, because that's my background, is in health and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So carnivore was always on the periphery. There was carnivore out here, and this person was carnivore, and this person was carnivore. And I was involved with a doctor on the East Coast with a remote, it was a functional medicine doctor. And I went a 4-year period where we did low FODMAP or something, where my bleeding colitis stopped for 4 years, and it was like a minor miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came back out of the blue on the keto. Nothing changed. It just came back, decided to. And I had a consultation with my doctor, and we were just like, what else can I eliminate? We did FODMAP, we did nightshades, we did this, and lo and behold, they're all plants,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They're everything that we wanted to eliminate was plants. And I knew I was already sensitive to eggs and dairy, so that was already out. And I just said, hey, what do you think of just doing carnivore for 30 days and just see how it goes? And he was not a carnivore doctor, but he agreed. And he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea for you. And he said, I think you're the kind of person who's disciplined enough to do it.
Yes.
And I said, yeah, I think I can.
And
so
when was that? When was that, Kat? Sorry to interrupt. What year was that?
May of 2020. It was when I turned 60 years old.
Wow.
On May 7th of 2020. And it was a 60th birthday present to myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what difference did it make? So you've done that now for a year and a bit. How's it been?
Amazing. Incredible. There have been some things that improved instantly, like the colitis cleared up instantly, so no more bleeding. The asthma, it wasn't just that I didn't need my medication. It was, I think I took a full breath, even being an athlete, and I live at elevation and I can run at 16,000 feet. Doesn't bother me. But still, my first week of carnivore, I think I took the first full breath I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. And I still, after a year, I still am, I just can't believe that I have this lung capacity that I never knew I didn't have, which is interesting. So that cleared up. My mood improved. This was COVID time, and my mood stayed really stable through the whole year. I have a whole list. I should have grabbed my list, but I don't have it, of the things that improved. My fingernails. I mean, there were dark spots in my fingernail streaks that have gone. The floaters in my eyes are gone. Weird little things that you just don't realize is your body being unhappy in some ways.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing of all is that I went and got, in 2020, right when I was starting carnivore, I went and got a whole bunch of mosquito bites. And guess what? No Lyme symptoms.
Wow. So yeah, that shows that you're much more robust. So
my theory is, and it's probably more than a theory, but I think when you take away the stresses that the various foods are putting on your body that affect your immune system, you take those away and your immune system can do its job. So the immune system can fight the Lyme disease, the Lyme bugs that are coming up. And then 3-4 weeks ago now, I had another bout of mosquito bites. And by now I would have been crippled with Lyme. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks after mosquito bites for me to get a flare up, and I have none.
That's so good. That's so good. Now, you mentioned something just before we started recording, so I know I've asked you this, but I just said it's very fascinating. You were talking about the lack of pain and what you've been doing recently, because you tried some very strict carnivore
I
to
did.
get rid of some sort of lingering pain. So I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I am pretty strict, have been for the year, and it's been going great, but I do have a weakness for what I would consider just the tiniest amount of diluted coffee. Or I'll put in a little bit of cocoa and a little bit of stevia. It was just a craving for some different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll use stevia in something, just make a little gelatin for myself and put a little stevia in it or something. And I've been doing that for the year, but I have had lingering joint pain.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's the Lyme disease, I'm not sure. I don't really have the other Lyme symptoms, but I do have the lingering joint pain, and that affects my hands, my thumbs, my hips, occasionally my knees,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty bad. It can limit my mileage because I'm a long distance runner slash hiker, and
Mm-hmm.
it could be limiting the hip pain. So and by the way, you coaches are incredible. And thank you so much, Stephen. You gave me that little tidbit about the tiny bit of blood sugar difference is the difference between being a diabetic and a non-diabetic. So that's always been in the back of my mind, that the teeniest, tiniest bit of cocoa or the teeniest, tiniest bit of coffee could be affecting me. And I still couldn't get leverage on myself to do it. And I'm not sure what happened this time. Well, I was planning a solo backpack trip, and I knew I didn't want to get stuck out there with inflamed hip joints. So I did get some leverage on myself. And 6 days ago, I started and I wrote, the numbers down, countdown in my calendar. So I am on day 6 of meat, salt, and water. And I have no joint pain. And I
Wow.
did just a one night overnight backpacking. I did 12 miles with a heavy pack. I did 28 pounds, 12 miles. And then I did 10 miles the next day with maybe a little less weight. I didn't carry as much water. But I came home, I have absolutely no soreness, no joint pain, no repercussions whatsoever. And to me, that's just miraculous. It's
That's
a little bit sad because um, I know there are carnivores that have coffee and they'll have cream in their coffee, or they'll have a little bit of cocoa, or they'll have a little bit of something. And I know that's the majority of people. And if you can get away with that, that's great. But to those of you who can't,
Mhm.
living symptom free and being over 60 and being able to do whatever you want without the pain or sickness, I can't tell you what that feels like after a lifetime of fighting it. It's just been amazing. And I'm literally on day 6 of this, just shocked and amazed that I'm waking up without any kind of pain.
That's such a brilliant story, Kat. That's fantastic. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking of wrapping up because we don't want to be on too long. But do you feel there's anything you desperately want to say, or do you feel like you've covered everything you wanted to cover?
No, I think we've said it all. And I just want to thank you again for your brilliant coaching. And I've had sessions with other coaches, and they're all amazing. I could not do this without the morning Zoom calls and the coaching. There's no way, because socially it's difficult, it's challenging,
Mhm.
and just having that constant support makes it all really possible for all of
Lovely.
us. So I wanted to thank you, and thanks for having me.